Hi, this is the second part of the fundamentals on taxation, again in Economics 1. And we have already covered the nature of taxation, the purpose, the canons of taxation, the basis for taxation, and the objects for taxation. And this will just be a continuation. We will be discussing the situs of taxation. Situs is a Latin term for place or location. So kung asa siya nakabutang. We will start with income tax. Kanang imo bitawng buwis sa imong gikita, sa imong sweldo. Okay. Income tax is paid either in the place where the income is earned or the residence of the taxpayer. So for example, nagpuyo ka sa Kabadbaran and you are working in Butuan City. So, mupili ka og asa ka mobayad og taxes. Pwede sa Butuan, pwede sa Kabadbaran. Nganong pwede man sa Butuan because didto man ka nagatrabaho, didto man nimo na-earn ang imong income. Nganong pwede mo pud sa Kabadbaran because that is where you reside. Mo na imong residential address. Okay, so income tax, it can be paid either sa asa ka nakita or sa imong residence. Then the next tax is the real property tax. Ang real property tax, mao ni siyang kantong land, house and lot, uh, for example. So this is paid where the property is located. So kung asa ang property. Ba? So for example, nakayuta sa Metro Manila, tapos taga Kabadbaran ka. When it comes to paying the real property tax, moadto jud kag Metro Manila to process. Dili man na siya dawaton diri sa Pilipinas because I mean diri sa Kabadbaran because wala man sa Kabadbaran ang house and lot. No, dili man po na nimo ma-transfer ang house and lot diri ah. So dito jud ka sa Metro Manila magbayad. Then, personal property. So, sa personal property na atay mga tangible and intangible properties. Pag mingon tag tangible properties, katutong mga immovable, like real property, di ba? Real estate property. So, asa man bayaran ang mga tangible taxes, bayaran sila sa place where the property is located. So, like, let's say for example, ang house nimo, no, house and lot, na kay factory, na kay building, na kay apartment. Kung asa to siya, dito gito nimo bayaran ang tax. Ang intangible properties, kadtong mga movable, madaladala nimo like vehicles, mga unsa pang property nimo, jewelry, unsa pa na siya. Didto na nimo bayaran o kung asa ka nakapuyo sa imong residence. Okay? Next, another tax is business and occupation taxes. Business and occupation taxes kanining mga tax nga gibayaran bitaw sa mga nagtag-iyang grocery, nagtag-iyang restaurant, mga negosyo, and kadtong mga occupation taxes kadtong sa mga lawyer, doctor, architect, mga engineer, no, nagabayad sila kay nas like professional, nag-provide sila og professional services. So, asa man ni bayaran ang tax? This is paid in the place where the business or occupation is located. Okay, so kintahay, doktor ka, tapos dito ka naga-clinic sa Butuan City, naka-register. So, dito nimo bayaran ang tax because dito man ang imong business. Okay? Mo nay business and occupation taxes. Another, yeah, so those are the business and occupation taxes. So, that's the location for taxes. Asa dapat magbayad. Then let's go to the limitations on taxation. So, um, ang taxation manggod is limited to certain provisions ang gikan sa atong constitution because again taxes is mandated by the constitution, so there are limitations nga dapat i-follow. There are two limitations. First is the inherent limitations. Pag mingon tag inherent limitations, these are rooted in the nature of taxation itself. Now, these are specific limitations that are not affected by changes in the provisions of the Constitution. So, kanang mag-change man ang Constitution, dili siya ma-change, dili siya mawala. Another limitation is the constitutional limitations. Ang constitutional limitations are those limitations provided in the Constitution. So, the constitutional term itself, meaning It is provided by the Constitution, and these limitations are more prone to changes if ma-change ang Constitution. So for example, ang 1987 nga gigamit nato karon nga Constitution, ma-change kintahi siya, maghimo kintahi si Duterte og new Constitution. So therefore, ang mga limitations and ang limitations of taxation will also be changed. Okay? So what are the inherent limitations? Sama na sila. Number one is that tax revenues must only be used for public purpose. So meaning, ang nakolek nga revenue o nakolek nga taxes from the people must be returned to them in the form of security, peace, order, and maintenance, and social and economic welfare, such as construction of government hospitals, learning institutions, public roads, and bridges. No? So, tax revenues must only be used for public purpose lang siya. Okay, gikan na siya sa tao, dapat para po na siya sa mga tao. Second limitation is that there should be proper delegation of legislative power to tax. So sa 1987 Constitution nato, nag-delegates na siya sa local government units or mga LGUs the power to tax subject to such limitations as may be provided by Congress. Okay? So likewise, ang Congress pod cannot delegate the power to tax except to authorize the president um, subject to limitations, restrictions to impose tariffs rates, import and export quotas. So the LGUs are delegated, but the Congress cannot delegate except if ang iyang i-delegate ang president to impose taxes and tariffs, but naka-base gihapon sila sa mga limitations and restrictions. Third is the government entities are exempted. So the government actually obtains the revenue by collecting taxes from the people. So taxing the government itself will not generate income. Okay, di ba? Ang kanang gikolekta sa gobyerno is gikan man sa mga tao. So that's not actually a revenue. So therefore, government entities are exempted. Um, However, the government agencies daw that are performing proprietary functions like ang Land Bank of the Philippines or the Philippine National Railways, they are generally subject to tax, no? Because they are actually earning, no? Wala man sila nag-provide og kanang social services, but they are conducting business. Nakita sila through conducting business. And except that when they are exempted by their charters or the law creating them. So except pag mingon gyud specifically nga dili ka magbayad ani nga transaction, so dili ka magbayad. And um, pero ang mga agencies that are providing public services, dili sila exempted sila for taxes. Let's say, for example, LTO, nag-issue siya og kanang permit, lisensya sa mga driver nya nagakolek siya bayad, no? Kanang gikolek niya nga bayad, dili na siya buwisan, dili na siya bayaran og tax because those are for providing services, and kana mismo nga iyan ang gikolekta will go to the pocket of the government, ma-utilize po na siya for providing services. So, ana. Number four, there are territorial jurisdictions, meaning only those persons, properties, and transactions situated within the territorial limits of the state are taxable. So, kadurang naa sa imong teritoryo, mo rin imong tax. Hindi ka pwedeng mo collect og tax outside of the territory or jurisdiction. Except kadtong mga Filipino citizens nga nag-work sa abroad who are still Filipino. Kadtong wala pa sila nag-change na lang citizenship, they are still subject to taxation as long as they remain Filipino citizens. The fifth limitation is there is an observance of international law. So mo ni ganina dapat mo observe ta sa international law. Let's say for example, kanang mga ambassador nato o ilang mga properties, they actually enjoy reciprocal tax exemption. Pag may reciprocal, that's because although wa nato lagi singil og tax diri ang ato man pong ambassador nga tuwa sa ilang country, they also enjoy reciprocal tax exemption. So exempted po to sila mo nang reciprocal tax exemption. Okay, so these are the inherent limitations. Magbag-o man ang constitution, dili ni siya ma-change. Next is what are the constitutional limitations? So unsa man tong mga limitations based sa constitution? Number one, observance of due process of law. So, according to, you can see this in the Article 3, Section 14.1 of the 1987 Constitution. It says that no person shall be held answer for a criminal offense without due process. So, um, meaning, nagkasala man ka or wala ka ni bayad og tax, dapat hatagan ka og due process. Dili siya basta-basta ang tungod kay wala ka nagbayad og tax, priso na dayon ka, dili na siya. Dapat muagi ka sa due process. Unsa man ang due process? You are able to dapat na hearing, na kay abogado imong kaugalingon, ma-explain nimo imong side, etc. So mo na siya. Mo nay due process. Next is equal protection of the law. In Article 3, Section 1, it says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the law. So dapat na daw equal protection sa atong law. And walay bisan isa nga pwedeng i-deprive sa iyang kinabuhi. Mo nang dili basta-basta mo patay, di ba? Mo nang dako nga issue ang like death penalty because that's in our constitution. No person shall be deprived of life without the equal protection or due process and the equal protection of the law. Okay? Next is uniformity and equity rule. In Article 4, Section 28.1 in the Constitution, the rule of taxation must be uniform, equitable, and progressive. Which means nga ang tanan taxable properties nga pareho, dapat naslay pareho nga rate. Okay? So dili, let's say for example, house and lot. So tanan house and lot pareho sila rate sa tax. Dili siya tungod kay kaila ni nako lahi ang imong tax. No, it should be uniform. Next is non-imprisonment for non-payment of poll tax. So Article 3, Section 20. No person shall be imprisoned for debt or non-payment of a poll tax. So pinaka-example ani is the community tax or kanang sedula. No, magbayad man ka or dili sa sedula, dili ka pwedeng kung dili ka mo bayad mo kuha og sedula dili ka prisuhon. Mukuha lang ta og sedula because that's sometimes required sa atong trabaho for kanang mga documents na kinahanglan og sedula. So that's why we get sedula because sedula is a community tax. But not paying sedula is not a criminal offense. Dili ka mapriso. Unlike kung dili ka magbayad og income tax, no, real property tax, pwede kang kasuhan. But for cedula, no, that's the poll tax. Number 5, no appropriation for religious purposes. So dapat daw walay budget, no? In the Article 6, Section 29.2 in the Constitution, no public money shall be appropriated, applied, paid, or employed directly or indirectly for the use, benefit, or support of any sect, church, denomination, sectarian institution, or system of religion, or of any priest, preacher, minister, or other religious teacher or dignitary as such, except kung kadtong priest, kadtong preacher, kadtong minister, or kadtong dignitary, they are assigned in armed forces. Kung na sila sa kasundaluhan or to any penal institution like mga prisuhan or government orphanages kanang mga orphanage sa nga gimanage sa gobyerno or leprosarium kanang leprosarium kanang mga hospitals that take cares of people with leprosy. Okay? So, ang gobyerno, dili na siya mag-budget para sa isa ka relihiyon, dili na siya maggahin og budget. Dili na siya maggahin og budget para sa pari o ministro. Except katong mga giingon nato nga nagtrabaho for the government. So, mo na gipasabot sa no appropriation for religious purposes. And aside from that, ang mga charitable institutions, ang mga simbahan, kumbento nga ginagamit or mga mosque unsa pa man na siya nga ginagamit for charitable or educational purposes are exempted from real property tax. So although walay na budget para ana, but pag ginamit ganis for charitable institutions, exempted sila sa tax. Dili sila magbayad og property tax. Okay, so those are the limitations under the Constitution. Okay, so we will be discussing some terms regarding taxation. So we will be discussing double taxation. Something double taxation. Double taxation refers to um, an instance when an income or property or a transaction was imposed with two or more taxes by taxing authority in the same year. No? Nahitabo ni siya, for example, if there are two or more countries kintahay that claim to have taxing authority over the same object of taxation. Let's say, for example, one product. Posible ni siya pag kanang ang countries nga nag-expose of taxes are using different tax bases. Pinaka-example ana kan tahay imported products na gisulod sa Pilipinas. So, ang Pilipinas will charge taxes on that product because it is within territorial jurisdiction. Di ba? Giingon na to, you can only impose taxes for the properties or individuals within the jurisdiction. While ang kadtong gigikanan ato nga product mo tax pod siya because naaman didto ang iyang naman pod siya jurisdiction, no, kay foreign investment man na siya nisulod sa Pilipinas. So ing ana ang mahimong double taxation, doble ang tax nga gibayaran. The next is single tax basis. Ang single tax basis happens when an object of taxation is imposed with two or more taxes from a single tax basis. Pinaka-example ani is, let's say for example, invest ka og funds, nipalit kag stocks, or tag-iya kag corporation. So kintahay lima ta ka buok tag-iya og corporation. Ang atong corporation nikita, so naa siya income. Since that's an income, magbayad na siya og tax sa gobyerno. So for example, na ay 100 million income. Imbis ka ng 100 million, kay lima man ta, tunga-tungaon nato, no, tag 20 million ta. Dili sa na ma 20 million kay bawasan pa man na siya og tax nga ihatag sa gobyerno. So kintahay 20 million ang tax, or ibutang lang tog 50 million para mas dali mag-divide. So 50 million ang tax, 50 million ang nabilin sa atoa. So kana na lang 50 million ang atong tunga-tungaon. So tag 10 million na ta. But then aside from gibayad nato sa ang corporation nato nagbayad sa tax, kita as individual sis ni dawat man ko og 10 million nga income, I will also be that will also be taxable. So magbayad ko income tax because ni income man ko. Kanang 10 million na ko ma-add na sa other income na ko, and then kuhaan na siya tax sa bayad sa gobyerno. So the same tax basis but you are charged double, no, as as a stockholder of a corporation and also as an individual. Okay, another is the value added tax. Kining value added tax nag-apply ni siya sa kanang mga products, no, especially let's say for example, na ay imported ng corned beef, no, nga na na sulod. So, kana sila imported, nagbayad na sila daan og tax, but after that, naapag value added tax nga gi-charge pagdating nila sa pag-abot nila diri sa Pilipinas. So, double taxation gyapon siya. Okay, so those are the scenarios where we are charged double on our tax. So, does the government tax itself? Bayaran ba ang nag-tax ba ang gobyerno sa iyang kaugalingon? Actually, the government may be taxed if ang profit niya giderive niya sa proprietary capacity. Let's say, ang atong example ganin is land bank, um, kanang other government controlled agencies, 'di ba? Or the railway system, gobyerno man na siya pero ngano nagbayad man siya og tax because kanang iyang na-collect nga kwarta dili man na siya I mean providing social services, no, dili na siya nag-provide og governmental responsibility kundi nag-collect siya kwarta na siya income because of a business. Let's say for example, land bank, kung pautang siya, na interest to niyang utang, di ba? So mo to yung revenue sa land bank. So therefore, ang revenue sa land bank, although government entity siya, pero nagbayad gihapon siyang tax. Okay? However, pag ang government daw nag-exercise o governmental responsibility, ang pinaka-example is LTO, nag-collect siya by releasing rehistro, lisensya, nag-collect siya og kwarta for that, and that is not a revenue nga murag business. That is actually a governmental responsibility. So dili na siya, dili magbayad ang na-collect nga kwarta sa LTO, dili na siya taxable. Dili na siya bayaran og tax. Okay? So mo to, ang gobyerno depende, magbayad ba ang gobyerno og tax depende na siya kung unsay function nga gihimo. Okay, so there are ways to avoid taxation. There are legal and illegal ways in avoiding taxation. So we will be discussing several ways of avoiding shifting. So shifting is transferring of tax burden from one person to another. For example, ani is like the kanang EVAT or expanded value added tax. Kana siya, gi-impose na siya sa mga businessman sa mga certain items nila or products nila, and ilan ang gipasa sa customers, no? Imbis nga sila ang magbayad sa EVAT, ilan ang ipatong sa presyo sa ilang product. So naa na siya, napasa na siya sa atoa. Kada produkto nga atong paliton na ay expanded value added tax. Kita ang nagbayad ana imbis na ang tag-iya sa produkto. So that's called shifting. Another one is capitalization. Ang capitalization, gihimo ni siya by reducing the price of a taxable product or service to lower the tax that will be imposed on its consumption. I'm not sure if you are aware, but pinaka-example ani is kana bitang magbaligya kag yuta. Um, I-lower na lang nato ang atong kuan diri sa agreement. So kintahay ang baligya ninyo sa yuta is 300,000. But pag nag-execute na mo og deed of sale, inyo na lang himuong 250,000 kintahay, no, para mas low ang bayaran ninyo nga tax. Kaya kung magbayad ka or mag-donate or maghatag kag yuta, na magyapon na siya tax. So mo na siya gitawag nga capitalization. Gilower nimo ang value ana niya para ma-lower pod ang amount sa tax nga bayaran. Next is tax avoidance. Tax avoidance refers to the availing of legally allowable. Ganang allowable na siya ha. Dili ni siya illegal. Uh, legally allowable means in reducing or minimizing the tax due on certain properties, items, and services, also known as tax minimization. Okay, so the same ra gyapon ni siya sa the same ra gyapon siya sa capitalization nga um, mag-offer ka og lower amount para ma-lower ang bayaran nga tax. Tax evasion. So this one is the illegal way of avoiding tax. Gitawag po ni siyang tax dodging, no? Gilikayan nimo. Unsa man paglikay ang pagbayad sa tax. Say for example, dili nimo i-declare nga naay kay income, dili nimo i-declare nga na kay property, or simply dili ka magbayad og tax. So mao na siya tax evasion. Gilikayan nimo, which is illegal and punishable by law. Then next is tax exemption. No, makadungog ta ini permi tax exempted man ko, tax exempted man ang among church, di ba? Mao na siya. This means nga gihatagan ka og legal basis nga dili magbayad og tax. So mo ning mga kitahin ni daog ka sa loto. So kana imong winning sa loto, that's exempted uh, for paying tax. Kana pong mga charitable institutions, they are exempted. Mga NGOs, exempted na sila for tax. Although naa sila tax identification number, pero wala sila ginabayaran nga income or property or income tax. Muna siya. Okay, so I hope um, this is clear. And I'm gonna leave you with this question. Why are government agencies exempted from taxes? Okay, so you submit your answer next week. Have a good day.